All right, okay, and we're going to be talking about SEO audits. Now, a lot of the guys, SEO companies, they're going to use their audit system basically to get more business and say, hey, we can help you fix up your website and all that kind of stuff. We don't do SEO anymore, so we have no intentions of stealing your SEO provider's business. But it's a very important tool because essentially what it does is it gives you the values, the statistics, and the numbers that are really important to search engines. Because if you think about it, search engines they're machines, they're computers. They're basically driven by math. So what they do is they crawl your site and they check metrics, they check how your site is structured, and then the machine decides, okay, so is this going to display properly? Is it going to display fast enough? Is it structured well? Is it going to frustrate the searcher? And should we put these guys on the first page or not? So it's really important that your SEO score is high enough, and that really just means that it's in a situation, it's structured and built in such a way that the search engines say, yeah, this is pretty good. It's not going to frustrate our users, because don't forget, Google, their entire existence depends on the fact that they serve up results that are going to give people the results they're looking for, and it has to be served up quickly and properly, and they see what they want to see as quickly as possible. So if you were on Google and you got a whole bunch of websites that are constantly broken, that take like 30 seconds to load, you're gonzo. So they're really careful with which pages they put on the first page. Now, one of the most important metrics by far is the load speed, because there's nothing more frustrating for a user than having to wait a long time for a page to load. So load speed is very important. I'm going to go over all of these things here, really quickly, and just give you sort of a high level as to what's what and what is important and why it's important. But the speed here is really important. So what Google says is, hey, in all search engines, it's like, how fast are these people going to be able to, the searcher, how fast is the searcher going to be able to actually look at that page in order to make a decision as to whether they want to read more or not more. So it's got to be pretty well in the green. And once it's in the green, you are like stellar and like you're good to go. Mobile is really important because something like 60% of searches are done on mobile, particularly for services. So when someone needs your services, whatever it is, whether it's electrical or landscaping or any kind of home services or business services, they're not looking for a whole pile of pretty pictures. They don't want to spend a half an hour poring over it. What they want is a fast load and get the results so they can make a decision. So I'm going to cover that, but right now I'm just going to head back up to the top and we're going to go down really quickly. So the score here is 93%. That's a very good score, by the way. But there's a couple of elements. The URL, it has to be a good URL, basically structured properly. A few people actually make a mistake here. A favicon is really just that little thing here. Up here, if you look at this page, it just says that little globe there, which means we don't have a favicon here. Now, if you look at all these other tabs up here, you can see all these little symbols and so on, and that's just called the favicon. Not a deal breaker, but it makes it easier. So it all counts. All these little pieces count. The title has to be properly structured. The length and the characters have to be, the right amount. Otherwise, you get the whole bunch of dots, and Google says, well, that's just going to make it harder for users to figure out whether they're on the right page or not. The description, that's for Google so that they understand exactly where they are. I'm using an example site here. All of our websites are structured the same way because, well, we figured it out, and what works, don't change it. Just like in your business, you know exactly how systems work, what your processes are, what your business processes are, and whatever you do, once it works, you don't want to change it. Descriptions, length, number of characters, any SEO is going to know that. How your images are structured. In this particular case, we have 26 images on this particular website. And it's good work here, so we passed that. In fact, we passed all of them. So it just looks at your images. Do you do them right? Do you have, these so-called alt text, alt tags that describe your images? That's mostly for Google, so that they know exactly what the image is about. So they're saying, hey, you got images, that are properly done. Here we have 24 out of 26 images have alt text. 2 of them don't, and the reason is because the elements that don't have alt text are things we don't have any controls over, like the forms. We're using a third-party form provider. Not a deal breaker. As long as your images are in good shape, you're good to go. No underscores. Google prefers dashes and underscores. Basic stuff. Headings. Make sure that you have these H1, H2 tags, H3 tags. This is also for Google behind the scenes, so they know exactly, where your paragraphs begin and what the primary headings are, what the subheadings are. So when they spider your site, they actually know exactly what that particular page is about, even before they look at the content. So they can mathematically look at your content and understand what is on that page in order to be able to rank it, in other words, place it in the right position based on a bunch of metrics, and this is an important one. Content. So we talked about content. We have 1,413 words on this particular page, and it says Google loves content. Our recommendation is to have a minimum word count of 1,500 words. We're just a little bit shy of that. Not a deal breaker, but you can see why content matters. It's very, very important to have a lot of good content. And if you're a large website, as in the previous video, you saw that content is very, very expensive. Again, that's another issue that we solved. The ratio of the code, the amount of code you have on your page versus the text. Sometimes people build ultra complicated websites where there's a whole crap load of code, and Google says, well, you know what, all that code is going to take a lot of time to load, it's going to slow down the speed, etc., etc. A sitemap, this is for Google predominantly, so that they can actually understand what's on the web page, how many pages you have, etc., etc. And any redirects, robots, text file. It's it's mechanical stuff. You can look that up. It basically stops search engines from crawling certain pages on your website. Fundamental site. This is the Google preview, so to gives you a little bit of preview. Again, this is a sample site, but it should say exactly what your site is about. Keywords, it gives you a whole bunch of reports in terms of your keywords, where it should be, where it should appear. For instance, window glass should appear in your description. It should appear in your H tags. Things like repair new is basically a useless term. Nobody's going to look for repair new, so it really should not appear anywhere. So that's good. So you have to sort of structure the site in a way that the words that you want to have show up for Google in the proper tags, and the titles and the descriptions show up where they should. So that's what that's about. Coding, make sure that it's properly done. Here's one, inline CSS found. This is almost impossible to avoid, and they say needs attention, and this is something that probably your own SEO is aware of, and it's probably not something that anybody ever does anything about, and Google knows that. So this is not going to be a penalizing factor for for your website. Iframes are basically like boxes, and Google can't really see what's in them. So we try to avoid iframes. Sometimes you can't, because like a form, a submission form, they might be in iframes. Flash, that's very outdated, and Flash is no longer supported, so stay away from that stuff. Structured data markup, that's also very important for things like schema, identifying your business. This is all, a lot of this stuff is actually about what's on your website that talks to the search engine. So there's two different, very, very different elements. There's one element that is purely focused on the user experience, what they see, and then the other elements, what we're going through here, are what talks to the search engine. So the search engines can say, hey, we know what's on this website. That's really what all of this comes down to. We know what's on this website. We know how it's put together. We know what the content is, and we know that we put it up on the first page, it's going to load quickly, and the user experience is going to be really, really good. That's the purpose of such an audit. Ultimately, that's what it is. So you can throw all kinds of links at it, do all kinds of SEO, but if you fall down too far in all of these, then Google's going to say, it's not going to result in a really good user experience. So here we have the scores, the desktop score. So if you're at a desktop, then it's going to load really quickly at 94%. Basically, anything above 90%, you are in amazing shape. And then it gives you the specifics in terms of what you need to do. Cumulative layout shift, in this particular case, because this is a sample site, we weren't able to address it because we don't have the full data. It's a layout shift, movement of visible elements. It's really not a big deal. It's something that is when you have text and you have content and you have images and you have stuff that's moving around and shifting around and stuff like that. They don't like that because it might take too long to do. But it's very small because it's still 2.1 milliseconds. And if we get rid of that, then this score will probably jump to like 96. But anything over 90, you are pretty well golden. And it gives you the reports here. Just about any SEO company is going to have a report like this. There's all kinds of free tools out there. You can check it, the same thing. They all pretty well use what we use, which is, at the end of the day, cat's out of the bag. We've got this software, but now, just about everybody else does have something similar, and they all rely on the same fundamentals, the same mechanics. So we passed all the tests. So like I said, let's see what's anything else here in the bottom. You have your social connections and links to your Facebook and Twitter pages and so on. But the most important thing by far is going to be the load speed. And all the other things that you have to fix if you have an issue with your particular website are going to reflect on your load speed. So if your load speed is very high and it's in the green in both instances, then you're pretty well golden. So don't look at all of these things, even if you look at your own website and your own SEO. If they're doing a good job, this is the focus. This is the absolutely the most important element, because this is what Google is looking for. Google wants to make sure that when you get a result for your search, you're going to see it fast. For better or worse, you're going to see it quickly. So all of this other stuff, we're talking about URL, titles, images, headings, content, security, blah, 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 everything else. It all comes down to how quickly they're able to deliver the result. So all of these things are going to impact the speed. Once you get into the green, really, you don't have to sweat it. That's the bottom line. So anyway, hope you enjoyed this, and if we can help your business, then book a call, and we're just going to talk about it, because there's massive opportunities out there for you, and not just for you, but in order for you to help more people in your industry. And that's ultimately the cornerstone of success. It's not just about the bottom line and money grubbing. It's about helping more people. So reach out, get in touch. I'd love to talk to you and see what we can do for your business. So no heavy sales pitch going on here. Even if you don't, take advantage and do all of this stuff, and you are going to do absolutely amazing. Hopefully we'll see you. So talk to you soon, and best of luck, no matter what.